The great Velnar station floated near the center of the galactic core. It was the meeting place of hundreds of alien species, traders, soldiers, explorers, and mercenaries from every known world. The wide halls were filled with light, voices, and movement. Metal footsteps echoed as creatures of every size and color passed by. To them, humans were still something of a mystery, small, soft-skinned beings from a blue planet few had ever seen. Most aliens thought humans were weak, slow, and fragile. Among the visitors that day was Captain Elias Trent, a human who looked far older than most who traveled this far from Earth. His hair was silver gray, his beard neatly trimmed but showing age. A long coat covered his uniform and a mechanical brace wrapped around his left knee. He walked with a slight limp, but his eyes were calm and steady, like someone who had seen too much and survived all of it. His ship, the Nomad's Grace, was old too. Its metal hull was scratched and patched, but it still flew just like its captain. That evening, Elias entered the Hall of Predators, a great chamber where warriors from every species gathered to tell hunting stories and show off their trophies. Giant skulls hung from the walls and the air smelled faintly of smoke and oil. The aliens looked up as the old human walked in. At first there was silence. Then came the laughter. The towering Kraxan, a reptilian warrior with black scales, crossed his arms and grinned. "A human? In the Hall of Predators? Did you take a wrong turn, old one?" he asked. Elias smiled politely. "No," he said simply. "I heard there were stories here worth listening to." A sharp clicking noise came from the corner where a Sithari, a tall insect-like being, stood polishing the claws on her forearms. "Stories?" she repeated mockingly. "What story could your kind tell? You have no claws, no fangs, no armor. You are made of soft flesh. You hunt with machines." "That is not hunting, it is hiding behind tools." The laughter grew louder. Other creatures joined in. Some pounded the tables. Others hissed and chirped with amusement. Elias didn't argue. He just looked at each of them, calm and unbothered. His eyes were the same kind of quiet one saw in an old soldier, or a man who had faced storms alone. When the laughter finally died down, he spoke again. "You call yourselves predators?" he asked softly. His voice wasn't angry, just steady, so steady that it made the hall fall silent again. The Kraxan tilted his head, frowning. "What are you trying to say, human?" Elias looked around slowly. "Predators hunt things weaker than they are," he said. "They chase easy prey because they know they can win. But that's not what humans are. We didn't survive by being the strongest. We survived by being the most stubborn," some aliens scoffed. "And how did that make you hunters?" one asked. Elias leaned against a table, folding his hands. "We were born on a world that hated us," he said. "Our skies threw lightning at us. Our oceans swallowed us. The beasts that hunted us were faster, stronger, and sharper than we could ever be. But we learned. We built traps. We worked together. We learned how to wait. We learned how to watch. We made tools because our hands couldn't tear and our teeth couldn't bite. But those tools made us what we are." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "Every creature on Earth taught us something about fear. But instead of letting it rule us, we learned to use it." The room was quiet now. The Kraxan's smile faded slightly. "Big words, old man," he said. "But words are easy. We hunt with our bodies. You hide behind metal." Elias's expression didn't change. "Then let's hunt," he said. The aliens exchanged confused glances. "What did you say?" "I'll prove what I said," Elias replied. "Let's hunt right here on this station. You choose your best predator. I'll face him tonight on the lower decks. No armor, no army, just man against hunter." The hall erupted with noise again. Some laughed, others shouted approval. "You'll die, human," one yelled. "The Kraxan will crush you." The reptilian leader grinned again, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You have spirit, old one," he said. "I'll take your challenge. When the lights go dark, you'll see what real hunting means." Elias gave a small nod. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe you'll learn what it means to be hunted by something you thought was weak." He turned and left the hall as quietly as he had entered. The laughter followed him down the corridor, but it no longer bothered him. He had heard worse on Earth, in jungles and deserts where things far more dangerous than words had tried to kill him. He reached his ship's small storage room and began to prepare. He didn't take heavy armor or energy rifles. Instead, he packed a few simple things: a coil of wire, a handheld scanner, an old shock beacon, and a small utility knife. To anyone else, they looked like useless junk. To Elias, they were enough. He had learned long ago that the most dangerous weapon was the one the enemy never saw coming. As the artificial night cycle began, the lower decks of Velnar Station went dark. Old cargo tunnels stretched like a maze beneath the station. The air was cold, the walls covered with dust and pipes. It was the perfect hunting ground. The Kraxan arrived with a small crowd of observers watching from the control room. He carried no gun, only his claws and natural strength. "You'll regret this, human," he growled as the door sealed behind him. Elias stood in the shadows, unarmed and quiet. "We'll see," he said. A low alarm sounded, marking the start of the hunt. The lights dimmed completely. The screens in the observation room showed faint shapes moving in the dark. The Kraxan's heat vision picked up a blur, then nothing. The human had disappeared. The alien warrior sniffed the air and moved carefully down the corridor. His heavy feet made soft metallic sounds as he passed each turn. A faint clink echoed somewhere ahead like metal brushing metal. He followed the sound, grinning. "Found you," he muttered. But when he reached the corner, there was nothing there. Only a hanging pipe and a faint spark where someone had cut through the wall panel. He frowned. Something wasn't right. He turned and heard a quiet footstep behind him. By the time he looked, the human was gone again. Only silence remained. From the control room, the other aliens began to whisper. "Where did he go?" one asked. "He's unarmed," another said. "How is he hiding from thermal scans?" Down in the tunnels, Elias crouched in the shadows behind a broken generator. He moved slowly, breathing through a filter that masked his heat signature. Every step was silent, measured, and patient. He had spent a lifetime surviving things that hunted him. This was just another night. The Kraxan roared suddenly, frustrated. "Come out, human!" he shouted. "Face me!" The old man smiled faintly to himself. "Rule 1, he whispered, barely audible. "Never fight the way your enemy expects." He touched a control on his wrist pad, and somewhere down the tunnel, a spark ignited. The Kraxan turned toward it instinctively. At that moment, a wire snapped loose from the ceiling and wrapped around his arm. He tore it free with ease, but by the time he looked back, the light had vanished again. He had just realized what was happening. Elias wasn't hiding. He was hunting. In the observation room, the silence grew heavy. The other species watched as the old human vanished and reappeared on the monitors like a ghost, setting traps, moving in patterns only he seemed to understand. "He's not fighting," one whispered. "He's studying him." Elias waited, patient as the grave, letting his prey move closer into the dark. The hunt was only beginning, and for the first time in his long life, he almost felt young again. The dark corridors of Velnar Station were silent, except for the faint hiss of air ducts and the occasional metallic echo from distant machinery. The Kraxan prowled the lower decks, his claws scraping lightly against the metal floor as he searched. Heat vision flickered across walls and support beams, scanning for the faint warmth of the human hunter. Every step he took was careful, methodical, and yet he could feel the tension building in his chest. He had faced countless creatures and warriors in his life, but the quiet patience of this human unsettled him in a way he had never known. Elias Trent moved through the shadows with deliberate ease. He had learned long ago that rushing into danger only invited death. He was patient. He listened to the hum of the station, noted every vibration in the metal floor, and watched the flicker of lights as the Kraxan passed. Every corner and beam of the abandoned corridors became his ally. The human did not need weapons to dominate this hunt. His mind was his greatest tool. A small clink sounded near the Kraxan's foot. He spun around, claws extended, but found nothing. He snarled in frustration. "Show yourself, human," he demanded. Elias crouched atop a low catwalk above the main corridor. From here, he could see the Kraxan below. He waited, letting the predator move forward. Then, without warning, a wire snapped from the ceiling and looped around the Kraxan's leg. The alien growled and tried to shake it off, but Elias had tightened the loop just enough to make it difficult to move. The Kraxan lunged forward, tearing the wire apart. He roared and struck the nearest wall, trying to intimidate his unseen opponent. He had never been challenged like this. Every hunt he had faced before had involved brute strength or overwhelming firepower. Now he realized that the human was not fighting him in the way any predator expected. The old man was controlling the battlefield, using traps and strategy rather than claws or teeth. From above, Elias dropped a small weighted net. It fell with a soft thud, barely noticeable until it entangled the Kraxen's arms. The alien tore at it, but each move triggered another small trap. A flash of light here, a spring-loaded beam there. Slowly, the Kraxen began to realize that he was not chasing the human. The human was shaping the hunt entirely. Elias's calm voice echoed softly in the corridors, carried by the station's intercom system. "Strength alone does not make a predator. Patience and planning make a predator," he said. The Kraxen froze. For a moment he felt a strange mix of anger and admiration. This human had not come to fight with brute force. He had come to teach a lesson. The alien had faced countless warriors, but none had moved like this. None had turned the very environment into a weapon. Minutes stretched on. The Kraxen moved carefully, every step measured, while the human slipped through shadows, always just out of reach. The observation room above the decks was silent. The alien spectators watched in disbelief as the old human outmaneuvered the galaxy's fiercest hunter. "He is not hiding," a Sithari whispered. "He is hunting the hunter." Elias waited until the Kraxen was fully in position near a collapsed bulkhead. With a soft press of a button on his wrist, he triggered a trap beneath the alien's feet. The metal floor buckled, sending the Kraxen sprawling to the ground. The impact knocked him down, pinned beneath a few panels, and he roared in frustration and pain. Elias stepped out from the shadows. He did not run. He did not raise a weapon. He approached calmly, walking around the pinned alien with quiet confidence. "Predators do not brag about their strength," he said softly. "They adapt. They learn. They survive. That is what makes a predator." The Kraxen struggled beneath the panels, his sharp claws tearing at the metal. "You are clever, human," he growled. "But cleverness will not save you if I catch you." Elias knelt down, examining the alien without fear. "I am not your prey," he said. "You were never my challenge." The challenge was understanding the hunt, knowing when to move and when to wait. The strength you brag about means nothing if you do not know how to use it. The alien's eyes narrowed. He had been humiliated, but he also felt respect. He had never been bested so completely by a being so small, so seemingly fragile. Every step of the human's plan had been precise. Every movement, every sound, every shadow had been part of the trap. And yet the human had not killed him. The lesson was clear. Humans did not need to rely on brute strength alone. From the observation room, the alien spectators began to murmur among themselves. The Sithari lowered her claws. "Perhaps humans are not the weak creatures we thought," she said quietly. Others nodded. The hall that had mocked Elias hours before was now silent in awe. Elias offered a hand to help the Kraxen to his feet. The alien accepted, still growling softly but no longer hostile. He stood examining the old human carefully. "You have taught me something," the Kraxen said after a long pause. "Perhaps strength alone does not make one a predator. Perhaps patience, planning, and courage are the true weapons." Elias smiled faintly. "That is what Earth taught us. Strength without understanding is meaningless. Humans have survived worlds that would have destroyed anyone else because we learned how to adapt, how to endure, and how to turn weakness into strength." The Kraxen nodded slowly. "Then you are the ultimate predator, human." Elias chuckled softly. "Not ultimate, just prepared." He limped toward the exit of the lower decks. The observation room followed silently, watching him leave. The other aliens felt something they had never experienced before, a mix of awe and unease. They had come to watch a weak human be destroyed. Instead, they had seen a being small in size but immense in skill, patience, and determination. The human reached the transport lift that would take him back to his ship. He paused and looked back at the Kraxen and the other creatures. "You will laugh less at humans after tonight," he said quietly. Back on his ship, Elias sank into the pilot's chair. He was tired, but a small smile played on his lips. The station was still alive with activity, but now whispers of respect followed him wherever he went. Some aliens had begun to understand that humans were not simple prey. They were survivors, hunters of the mind and body, creatures who could take on the universe with nothing but their wits, patience, and courage. The Kraxen, still catching his breath in the tunnels, looked at the traps and devices left behind. "He fought with no armor, no weapon," he muttered. "And yet he dominated every move. How?" The Sithari beside him answered softly, "Because he did not fight with strength alone. He fought with everything humans have learned in their long struggle to survive. That is why they endure. That is why they are dangerous." For the first time in decades, the Kraxen felt a new understanding of a species he had always dismissed. They were fragile, yes, but underestimating them would be a fatal mistake. Patience, intelligence, and courage. These were the true weapons of humans. And this old man had shown it in a single night. Elias started the engines of the Nomad's Grace. The lights of Velnar Station reflected off the ship's metal hull. As it slowly lifted off into space, the stories of the night began to spread through the station. Aliens spoke quietly of the human who had bested their greatest hunter, not with strength but with cunning and patience. A legend was born, not of a battle fought with brute force, but of one fought with mind, skill, and calm determination. Somewhere far in the distance, Elias glanced at the stars through the cockpit window. Predators, he murmured softly to himself. You never knew what it meant. And as the old human piloted his ancient ship back toward the safety of deep space, the galaxy began to understand something it had long ignored. Humans might be small, but they were far from weak. The cleverness, patience, and courage of one human could challenge the proudest hunter in the galaxy. And survive. The laughter had ended. Respect had begun. The old human smiled, knowing that Earth had produced hunters who could survive anything. And as the stars streaked by, Elias Trent felt the quiet satisfaction of a lifetime of survival. Wisdom and victory, a victory without violence. A lesson that strength alone was never enough, and that the greatest predators were often those who appeared the weakest.